Let's talk about more records. The last video I made took a long time to edit, so I thought for this one I'd show you some other interesting records I have, but do so in a more casual way that won't take me a full 6 hours to edit. So here we go. So let's jump right in. I'll start with albums that are foreign releases. Now I won't include any British albums I have because they're just going to be very similar to the American ones anyway. So this one here is Super Trouper by ABBA, probably my favorite of their albums. And when I bought it online, I assumed it would be the US pressing, but it turns out this is a Filipino pressing. The only thing that really distinguishes it is that it features this printed on the cover, featuring the super hit Winner Takes It All.
The winner takes it all. The loser has to fall.
Which, while it was a charting single, was definitely not the big song from this album.
Like a super trooper, lights are gonna find me.
I looked it up. Apparently, it actually charted higher than Super Trouper did. Next up, we have this one from Spain. This is Gigante Adele Pop Volume 2, The Who. This was a series of imported albums. They'd be imported into the US and sold for cheaper. This is basically the entirety of The Who's greatest hits. Not really any changes. Just a unique title, a unique cover. So this one's going to act as a transition between this segment and the next. It's one of my favorite albums, Machinehead by Deep Purple. Got lots of really good songs on it. This is one of the earlier metal albums I have.
Nobody gonna take my car, I'm gonna race it through the crowd.
This one is a German pressing, and it comes in what's known as a unipack. It's a gatefold, but it has this very thin, floppy front cover, and the album is taken out of the center instead of the end. I actually have one other album that comes as a unipack. It's Climbing by Mountain, which is an album that has their one and only good song on it, Mississippi Queen. It's also a unipack, and it opens from the center. So it leads me into the next part, which is albums with unique packaging. So this one is Diana the Herald by Blank Dogs. They're a very unknown band. I'm pretty sure all of the members of it are actually anonymous. They make very weird sounding music. But this release was available in about 10 different color schemes, and everything is screen printed onto the front cover. As a matter of fact, the back of it is blank, apart from in the top corner, in highlighter, is written 232 out of 500. Apart from that, there's nothing else written on the cover. I was lucky enough to actually get it in one of my favorite colors, lime green. Here's an album that's been incredibly influential on getting us to where we are currently in popular music, but no one really seems to know about it, at least not apart from its title track. This is Popcorn by Hot Butter. First copies of it for US release have an actual popcorn box glued onto the front cover. So here's an album called Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull. This is a very famous album for two reasons. One, it consists entirely of one 45-minute long song, and two, the band wrote themselves an entire newspaper to stick onto the front cover of this album. And when I say entire newspaper, I mean it's multiple pages long. And the band all got together and wrote all of this stuff, even a crossword in the center. So here's another Who album. This is the Who Live at Leeds. Now mine is interesting because this is normally, this is a stamp that's put on the front, and it's normally in blue. Mine is in red. This was packaged to look like a bootleg. It's in very plain packaging. There's nothing on the back. But also, interestingly, it comes with a whole bunch of papers inside, lyric sheets and contracts, and there's a letter in here of them getting turned down by a record label. It's a really interesting read to go along with this album. This album's going to be another bridge for us to go into the next section. This is Synchronicity by The Police. Now these three colored bands on here There were actually 32 different versions of this album cover. They all have different pictures, and the three colored bands are in different orders. In addition, it opens from the top rather than from the side like most albums do. And this will lead us into the next section of albums in which the discs themselves are interesting. This is pressed on what's known as Quiet X vinyl. It looks like a normal black record, but when you shine a very bright light behind it, you see that it's actually a transparent dark green. Now, I won't talk about every colored album I have, otherwise I'd be here all day. But I do want to mention this one. This is the debut album by Devo, which is called Q, Are We Not Men? A, We Are Devo. This is the special Canadian pressing. So Devo is actually from Akron, Ohio, and in Ohio they get a lot of imported records from Canada because they're so close to it. So they released a special version in the areas of Canada immediately bordering Akron, so that citizens in Akron would be able to get this unique purple splatter version of the album. So this one here is Paradise Theater by Styx, and no, I haven't put it sideways on the holder. The album is actually printed sideways. But that's not what the interesting thing is with this album. The interesting thing is that the B-side of this album is actually laser etched. It's playable too. You can play straight through that. It says Styx. It's got two female figures on the side and a little nice design at the bottom. So here's another classic album, Surrealistic Pillow by Jefferson Airplane. It has both of their good songs on it. But when this came out in the late 60s, RCA was experimenting with a way to try to cut costs on making records. So they would add in only half the amount of vinyl that they normally used, and that resulted in what they call Dynaflex records, which are records that are so thin that they're floppy. They can be pretty easily bent. So this one is something a little bit unique. This is an album called Environments. This came out in 1969. Side 1 is 30 minutes of the sound of a beach, and side 2 is 30 minutes of bird sounds. That's it. And this went on to become one of the highest selling albums of the year. That's really all it is. It's advertised on the back as just a way to help you relax. As a side note, I also realized as I got this one out that this one is also a unipack. Now here's, I think, one of the most interesting things I have. These two records right here are radio sets. These would have been given out to radio stations. This one is Rock Over London, and this one is the BBC Rock Hour. And they're dated July 31st and August 28th, 1983. So being British and from 1983, it's a lot of new wave. There's Elvis Costello, Yaz, and Echo and the Bunnymen on these. But I have one more that I think is probably one of the most interesting things I have. So this here is a slightly waterlogged copy of the American Top 40 with Casey Kasem. There's another radio set. This would have been given out to radio stations. It's the entire show. Pardon the mold. It's dated 5/14/1984. And it's long. It's the entire broadcast. It's multiple discs long. It's 4 discs. And it actually comes with ad breaks, with some ads pre-cooked onto the disc. It even comes with this pamphlet to tell you what songs are on here, what the ads are, where the ads are, so you know when to stop and insert local ads. So you can see the first one is for Yoplait and Lee Jeans. And it also starts with the number 1 song from last week, Hello by Lionel Richie, which, spoiler alert, is also the number 1 song for this week. A lot of good songs in here, actually. A lot of interesting ads to hear being played in here. Like Agree Shampoo. Alright, well that's all I'm going to show for today. If you have any questions and you want to hear me talk more in depth about anything I showed in this video, leave a comment below. I might just get to it. Or if you want to see me talk about anything else I happen to know about, also leave a comment below. See you next time.